My mom bought me this skin whitening cream that she got from China or something. And I was like, who are the people that's telling you that pale skin is beautiful?
When you look at novelas and when you're looking at Latin media and news outlets, all you see are white Latinxes. You never see any Afro-Latinx people being shown as the protagonists.
It's been so ingrained, this want to be in proximity to whiteness, to align ourselves with whiteness, has been something that we have been exposed to basically from the moment we were born.
Today we're tackling how to talk about racism and colorism in non-Black families of color. I'm Nicole Ellis, and this is the new normal. When you bring up Black Lives Matter with family members, how does that conversation go?
Whenever I do try to bring up these conversations, I'm very easily brushed off.
It comes across to them as sort of an attack.
It's like a defense mechanism, like, oh, you're antagonizing me. I've never done anything wrong. What do you mean? I'm Mexican. How could I be holding this privilege? And it's very hard for them to see.
How can I explain systemic racism to my parents, especially considering that they are immigrants and they haven't grown up in the context of this country and knowing the history of this country?
Before diving into conversations about race, it's important to confront your personal relationship to colorism, racism, and the benefits of proximity to whiteness that you've experienced in your own life.
I remember a conversation that I had with a group of friends of mine who are also non-Black Latinas. And I said, am I white? Am I white passing? And they were like, yeah, you're pretty white passing. And so I had a lot of discomfort just coming to terms with all of the ways in which I've been complicit in white supremacy within my own culture.
Modern day racism is a byproduct of colonialism and the ways that it's incentivized putting a premium on whiteness over the past 500 plus years.
It was actually a survival strategy to be in proximity to whiteness. So our ancestors did survive by aligning ourselves with whiteness and marrying into whiteness. It can be really uncomfortable and it can bring up some shame.
Colonial practices like caste systems predate American slavery and can make it easier for families that immigrate to the US to internalize false perceptions of both themselves and of others based on race, which in some ways paved the way for the model minority myth among Asian American communities.
It's this belief that Asian Americans, because they are hardworking and they follow the rules and they do all the right things, are successful.
It's a stereotype that started shortly after World War II to reconcile flaws in America's democracy, like Jim Crow laws, which completely contradict the idea of a truly free and equitable society.
Implicit in the model minority idea is that means there must be a problem minority. Whatever discrimination that Black people are facing, it's their own fault. It is inherently anti-Black.
A great way to initiate a conversation with a parent or a family member about race is to ask about their own experiences. And if it comes up because someone said something racist in real time, use it as a catalyst to ask more questions.
If you are deeply curious, it's very likely that at some point in their lives, they have experienced some form of oppression. Those conditions force us to see each other as rivals, that my prosperity necessarily depends on somebody's suffering.
Do you feel like a part of why you get so much pushback is because you bringing up injustice within another group somehow makes them feel like their experiences are invalidated?
They worked really hard to get to the United States and to, learn English and get jobs and be taken seriously by people here. So for them, when I say that Black Americans, they experience racism that's different, they think that I'm saying that there are things that they didn't have to struggle with.
Which is why it's really important to go into these conversations informed and empathetic to the fact that as a person of color, they've experienced racism too.
When we think about the pressures being put on parents, immigrant parents, Latinx parents who are Spanish speaking, who still may not have the resources, we have to really understand that we have been living within a racist system and racist institutions basically all of our lives.
But racial trauma and racial privilege are not mutually exclusive. You can experience racism and be racist at the same time. So instead of arguing about it, double down on asking questions and try to connect your perspective to their experience.
That's the power of white supremacy. It convinces us that whatever we do have, we are in constant threat of losing. You want to find those spaces where people can be vulnerable. That's where things are going to change. It's not going to happen up here. It's going to happen in here.
The goal is to fight white supremacy together because it does impact all of us negatively.
You're not just trying to change your family members, you're trying to change society.
We're going to keep covering stories like this, so stay tuned. For more stories like this, subscribe to The Washington Post on YouTube.